The first topic is homeostasis and cell transport. Let's focus on homeostasis. Homeostasis is the ability of the body to maintain a relatively stable internal environment regardless of any changes that happens around us. The analogy for that is our AC at home. So there is a set point that you want your temperature to be, which is here 72 degrees. The responsibility of that control center, which is your AC, is to keep the temperature around 72 degrees. Suppose that the temperature got colder, so it drops here to 70 Fahrenheit. This is going to be detected by the receptor, which is the thermostat. The thermostat will send that to the control center, your AC, and then the AC, which is the control center, will do something to get the temperature back to normal, which is 72. So here it's gonna blow kind of hot air around, and this response will get the temperature back to 72 Fahrenheit, which is the set point. This is how body maintain our internal environment all the time. So here we have a negative feedback mechanism that keeps our homeostasis. There is a stimulus, and the stimulus here is a change that happens. This stimulus is detected by the receptors. The receptors will tell the control center about that change. Then the control center will produce an action through the effector, and then the response happen that gets your set point again to the normal level. So what do we call this? We call this negative feedback mechanism. So in the negative feedback mechanism, the stimulus goes to one direction. Suppose for example, the temperature around you is colder than it should be. So here the temperature is going down. Then your body receptors will tell your control center in the hypothalamus about that change. The control center will do something to get your temperature up to normal by shivering, for example. So when the stimulus goes to one direction and the response goes to the opposite direction, we call that negative feedback. And this is how we maintain our homeostasis. So again here, if the temperature is colder, then the control center in the hypothalamus feels that, then it does something to keep our temperature stable by shivering, curling up, and the result of that is your body temperature will go toward the normal value. A lot of examples happens to keep our internal body environment relatively stable, which is homeostasis. For example, when you lie down, what happens to your blood pressure? Your blood pressure drops as you stand up. This is a stimulus. Now, there are receptors in the body that feels your blood pressure, and it sends the signals here to the cardiovascular center in the brain, in the medulla. Then that will do something to get your blood pressure up to normal. So what happens here is that your heart rate increases, and this helps your blood pressure to go up to the normal level. So we call that negative feedback. Why? Because the stimulus goes down, the response goes up. Since they go in opposite directions, this is a negative feedback. So by the negative feedbacks, everything within our body stays within a normal range, which is a set point. For example, the pH of the blood is maintained within 7.35 to 7.45, as well as the minerals, glucose, everything. Now, there are two body systems that are responsible for homeostasis. What are they? They are the nervous and the endocrine systems. Both are responsible for homeostasis and by inducing the negative feedback mechanisms responsible for maintaining our internal body environment within a certain range. We have another type of feedback, which is the positive feedback. But the negative feedback mechanisms are more common than the positive ones. And the positive feedback, here there is kind of acceleration system working. So, for example, during labor, during childbirth, we begin with uterine contractions increasing. And as a result of that, oxytocin hormone is released. This will lead to more uterine contraction until the baby is delivered. So here, the stimulus and the response both are going up. If you compare that to the negative feedback, the stimulus goes to one direction, the response goes to the opposite direction. So the negative feedback is a process in which the body senses a change and activates mechanisms to reverse that change. So the response is opposite to the stimulus. But in the positive feedback, both are going up. So it's kind of a self-amplifying cycle. Another example of positive feedback is the process of blood clotting in case of injury to prevent bleeding. So if an injury happens in a blood vessel, platelets accumulate here to obstruct the injured blood vessel to prevent bleeding. As platelets come and stick here, they invite more to come. As more are invited, they invite more to come. So here we started with increasing platelets coming to obstruct the injured blood vessels, ending with more to come. So that is an acceleration system. Okay, now let's go with the review questions related to this part, which is the homeostasis. So, homeostasis is the condition in which the body maintains a relatively stable internal environment within a certain range. So, it's not stable, it doesn't have just one set point. So, it has to be within a certain range, kind of a tight range sometimes. So your body temperature is within 97 to 98 Fahrenheit. So if it is 97, it is normal. If it is 98, it is normal. More than that, you have fever. So it is within range. Okay, what are the two body systems responsible for homeostasis? They are the nervous system as well as the endocrine system. So both systems, the nervous and the endocrine, are responsible for the negative feedbacks. Okay. A system in which an increase or decrease in the variable being regulated brings about responses that tend to move the variable in the direction opposite to the direction of the original change or the stimulus. Of course, this is a negative feedback, which is the way of the body keeps homeostasis. A system designed to accelerate or enhance the output created by stimulus that has already been activated this is of course a positive feedback. Okay, what feedback mechanisms are more common than what? Of course, the negative feedback mechanisms are common than the positive ones. So negative feedback mechanisms are more common than positive feedback mechanisms. The regulation of blood glucose level, blood pressure, body temperature, all of these are examples of what mechanisms? Is it positive or negative? Okay, that's to keep these variables relatively stable or within range. So this is a negative feedback mechanism that keeps our body um, relatively stable, which is homeostasis. So negative feedback mechanisms. Number 7, oxytocin release during childbirth or the blood clotting process or opening of more membrane channels so more sodium enter. All of these are examples of what? All of these are kind of acceleration systems. So they are examples of positive feedback mechanisms.